All right, in this lesson, we are going to talk about word problems for inequalities. And so some important phrases to look for are words like at least, at most, and then of course our greater than and less than. So any kind of words that say no more than or greater than, that's going to tell you you're dealing with a word problem. So if you see at least 5, that means 5 is the lowest. At least 5. 5 is the lowest. If I say I need at least 5 students to help me, I could take 5, I could take 6, I could take 7. 5 is the lowest. So that means I would need x greater than or equal to 5. I can take 5 or I could take more, but 5 is the lowest. If I say at most 5, 5 is the most I can take. Okay, and so that means I could take 5 students or 4 students or 3 students, but I can't take more than. So I would use the less than or equal to. Okay, and so less than makes the L, if that helps you remember. And then if it's something greater than, that of course is going to be x greater than 5, and then less than 5 is x less than 5. And so if you're wanting to use the symbols over here to the right, A, B, C, and D, greater than or equal to would be the first one. At most would be D. Greater than, and then less than. And so we have B, D, and A. Okay, so let's look at some examples. The maximum weight allowed. So they're saying maximum weight allowed on an elevator is 950. So that means 950 is the most. So we have to be less than or equal to the 950. The 5 people already on the elevator weigh 780 pounds. To be able to ride the elevator safely, what is the maximum weight the 6th person can weigh? Okay, so we already have 780 pounds on the elevator, and we don't know the weight of the 6th person. And so this inequality would be 780 plus whatever the 6th person weighs has to be less than or equal to 950. So step 1, to find the variable, we're going to let x be the weight of the 6th person. Okay, and then for our inequality, we have already written it. 780 plus the weight of the 6th person has to be less than or equal to 950 or it's not safe. And to solve this, we would subtract the 780 from both sides. Borrow from the 9. 15 minus 8 is 7. 8 minus 7 is 1. And so x is less than or equal to 170. And we can check 780 plus 170 equals. Okay, and so now we can answer in a sentence. The maximum weight of the 6th person is 170 pounds. Okay, next it says twice the sum. Twice the sum means add, of 4 and x is less than negative 16. Okay, so twice the sum means multiply by 2. The sum of 4 and x is less than negative 16. Find the possible values of x. So there's two ways you could go about this. You could distribute the 2, or you could go ahead and divide by the 2. I'm going to distribute it just because we're in that habit. And then to isolate x, we would need to subtract 8 from both sides. And then divide by 2. So we get x is less than negative 12. And so to answer in a complete sentence, the possible values of x is all real numbers. We always say real. We're not talking about imaginary numbers yet. All real numbers less than negative 12. That doesn't include negative 12. Everything less than negative 12. Terrence wants to make and sell paintings to earn money. The tools he needs cost $48. He also needs $2 in supplies for each painting. If he sells the paintings for $6 each, how many paintings must he sell to make a profit? Okay, and so in order to make a profit, we need his earnings to be greater than his cost. Okay, so we need to write an expression to represent his earnings. So if x is the number of paintings, always define your variable to be what you're looking for. So the question is how many paintings? And so that's why I'm using x to represent the number of paintings. So if x is the number of paintings and they're being sold for $6 each, my earnings are represented by 6 times x, the number of paintings. Okay, and then our cost is going to be $48 for the tools. That's just a flat fee. But he also has to pay $2 for each of those paintings. So he's also going to have to spend 2 times x. How many paintings he buys, he has to multiply that by 2. And so now we have an inequality we can solve for x. And so this is one of those inequalities where x is on both sides. So I'm going to get rid of all the x's on the right-hand side, giving me 4x greater than 48. Then divide by 4. And so x is strictly greater than 12. And so to answer the question, he has to sell at least 13. Because if he sells 12, he's only going to break even. He's going to not make a profit. And so since it says strictly greater than 12, we can't include the 12. So he must sell at least 13 paintings, assuming he's not going to sell a fraction of a painting. And so more than 12. 12 is not enough. Terrence wants to make and sell paintings to earn $120 for a new jacket. The tools he needs cost $48. He also needs $2 in supplies for each painting. So there's his cost. If he sells the paintings for $6 each, how many paintings must he sell to earn $120 in profit? Okay, and so this is going to look a little bit different. It's very similar to what we were doing, but we aren't just trying to get our earnings to be greater than our cost. We're trying to get our earnings, or let's put it this way. We need to get our profit greater than or equal to 120 for that jacket. And so to write the expression for the profit, we're going to have to write his earnings minus his cost. And we need that to be greater than 120. So the earnings were represented by 6x. The cost was represented by 48 plus the 2x for each painting. Okay, and so now we have some distribution to do. We're distributing a -1. So minus 2x. And we can combine some like terms. We got 6x minus 2x, which is 4x. And then we can add the 48 to both sides to isolate x. And so we end up with 4x greater than or equal to 168. Divide both sides by 4. You get x greater than or equal to 42. And so he must sell at least 42 paintings. And this time we do have the equality options, because if he makes 120, he'll make that profit. So at least 42 paintings. And so I should have defined the variable. X is still the number of paintings. Okay, last one here. I think last one total. Jesse makes $9.75 an hour working at half-price books. He wants to buy the newest iPhone priced at $7.99. Write and solve an inequality describing how long Jesse will have to work, that's the question, in order to be able to purchase the iPhone. So X will be the number of hours Jesse works, so that we answer the question. Okay, and so he needs his paycheck, his earnings, to be greater than or equal to $7.99. And we're just going to assume there's no tax, even though we know there is. We're going to pretend that's the price after tax. Okay, he makes $9.75 an hour. So his earnings would be 975x, and we need that to be greater than or equal to $7.99. So this is a one-step inequality. We just need to divide by 9.75. And you wouldn't have to do this without a calculator, so I'm going to grab my calculator. And so $7.99 divided by 9.75. He would need to work about 81.9 hours, so about 82 hours. We'll round. Especially since there actually is tax. So at least 82 hours. It's a lot of hours to work for that iPhone.